But I also have a cheat sheet.
Good evening, everybody. It is 7 o'clock, and I'd like to call the City of Twinsburg Caucus meeting to order for May 27, 2025. Will you please call the order?
Mr. Post?
Here.
Mrs. Walker?
Present.
Mrs. Labby? Here. Mr. Bellin? Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mr. Fury?
Here.
Mr. Bonacci?
Here.
Thank you, Ms. Conway. All right, so I'd like to make a motion to appoint Christina Conway as the clerk pro tem for May 27, 2025.
I will second.
You will second? Any discussion? All right, Ms. Conway, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Post?
Yes.
Mrs. Labby?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes.
Mr. Fury?
Yes.
Mr. Bonacci?
Yes.
Mrs. Walker?
Yes.
All right, motion passes 6-0. Congratulations, Ms. Conway.
Thank you.
Very excited to have you. All right. Presentations. Do we have any presentations this evening? I don't think we do. Not for Caucus, no. All right. Any items for discussion specifically? Anybody? No? Okay. Audience participation.
There is none.
There is none. We are flying through. Let's jump to legislation. This one's going to be a lot for me here. Here we go. Ordinance 47, 2025. This ordinance is to implement the proposed sewer rate changes by amending section 911 of the code. The city has done a sewer rate study with the results recommending increases to fund the needed repairs and increasing maintenance and operating costs of the department. The new rates will include a 4% increase starting July 1st, 2025, and then annually on January 1st through 2030. This will be on its second reading tonight. We are being asked to suspend the 3-reading rule and pass this on an emergency after the third read. I did have a conversation with Nate today about the rates, about, I do like it neat and orderly numbers. And so I just called him, well, I actually sent him an email about it. And just so you know, he is going to go back and fine tune because some of the rates will end up coming down because Nate did take into effect compounded interest. So it might be able to save residents a little bit of money on that at the end. So
Could you say that again, please? He didn't take into account
compounded interest. So he was doing 4% for 5 years to get to 20%, but when you actually do 4% for 5 years, it's actually 21.6%.
I got it.
So
So the math at the end, we were higher than
we were a little
the.
higher than we needed to be. So he's going to fine tune that, and we're going to come back with just a baby bit lower rate.
Okay.
And, save the residents a little bit of money.
Thank you.
All right. Ordinance 48, 2025. This ordinance is for a language update to the code for Chapter 913. In November 2023, the residents voted for charter changes, which included the division of Public Works Department into two separate departments, one being the wastewater department and the other the service department. This ordinance will allow the title of Public Works Director to be changed to Director of Wastewater Treatment to match the charter. The only thing that's being changed in this chapter is the title. The title to Director of Wastewater Treatment. This will be on its second reading tonight. Any questions, concerns on Ordinance 48? All right, Ordinance 49, 2025. This ordinance is for council's consideration to rezone parcel 64-00096 at the 9392 Ravenna Road. This is at the request of the property owner. This property is being asked to be changed from a C2 community commercial district to an I1 intensive commercial and light industrial zone use. The Planning Commission heard this case and approved the rezoning at their May 21st meeting. There will be a public hearing on June 10th at 6:45, and this will be on its second reading tonight. We spoke last week on this. This is at the Blue Top Motel, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That area? And are there any concerns about that or questions?
No, it's going to be a positive to that area, in my opinion. And I would support it going to industrial.
Excellent. Any other comments? No? All right, Ordinance 50, 2025. This ordinance is to amend Chapter 195 regarding the Twinsburg Occupancy Program. This program was established in 2004 and has not been updated in recent years. This ordinance will redefine the purpose, established revised eligibility, and update the schedule of grant benefit, the application process, and reporting and fee amounts. If there are any questions, Ms. Ziegler is here to answer any questions if you have it. Unless, Ms. Ziegler, you have something you'd like to add as well? No? The cranes that was on my desk here says that you were the mayor, by the way. is your name with the mayor, so just thought you'd like to know that. Congratulations. All right, ordinance 52, 2025. This ordinance is to discontinue the annual funding to the CIC. Mr. Vazana gave an update at the last meeting and pretty extensive conversation, and it will be on its second reading tonight. Is there any other questions, comments, or concerns about ordinance 52, 2025 or the CIC? Okay. Ordinance 53, 2025. This ordinance is to amend Chapter 351 regarding parking regulations. This includes updates to overnight parking, emergency snow van parking, and no parking on fire hydrant side of streets. There were a few changes that were made. Mr. Vazana, I know we talked about this last week. Do you want to talk about any current changes that may have been adapted since last time? Or
Yeah, so based on the conversation that happened at the last council meeting, the administration has added in a section, you'll see it's third page, that prohibits parking on either side of residential streets in the cul-de-sac turnaround. A cul-de-sac street, portion of the street that is straight, and the cul-de-sac turnaround at the end. So this language here would prevent parking within the turnaround area where you commonly see islands. So you'll see that on the third.
all right, so that it's parking is, for clarification, parking is allowed on the street, not on the fire hydrant side, but not in the actual circle of the cul-de-sac.
Correct.
Correct. Just want to clarify. Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
And I wanted to add that mayor and the administration got a copy of this amended version of ordinance 53 to the fire chief, because it obviously is a fire issue, but how do you navigate fire apparatus, EMS in turnaround portions of the cul-de-sac area? And our fire chief was very pleased with the language.
Awesome. Thank you. I will say I'm glad you're doing this because I do think it was silly, our old ordinance that says there's no parking on the streets at any time. And I think this kind of gets in tune with a lot of the other surrounding cities. So I really commend you. I know Mayor Scafidi, I think this was you who really brought this to the attention. I think it's a great idea.
When we were getting complaints about street parking, so that's, Chief and I discussed it, and that's the cause of it.
I think it's awesome that you're proactive in doing that. And
Since this
take
is,
care of it. But go ahead. So my only suggestion is that if we're gonna do this and put up signs, I personally would love to see the signs say only to educate the residents, because our residents need education, just like we need education. I would love the signs to say no parking on fire hydrant side. This is me. Instead of just no parking, I would love to say no parking on fire hydrant side because it educates them. And then in the cul-de-sac, I'd love it to say no parking in the cul-de-sac. That's just me. I don't know if anyone shares that opinion, but I think the more we tell the residents specifically what we need.
Cul-de-sac means the whole street. I learned that today from Mr. Vazana.
there's 9 houses in my street with a cul-de-sac, so I'd have 2 no parking signs for 9 houses.
Well, I think it depends on the street. I think we need to be realistic that there are.
Sherbrooke's a little different because there's about 300 houses before you get to the cul-de-sac. So-
Right. So I think we have to be, realistic then. So my street, for example, has.
Yeah, you've got a
10,
quarter of a
12,
mile.
10
Yeah.
There are a lot of streets in Ethan's Green and around the community and in Meadowood that have 15, 20 houses before you get to the circle. And, but it's okay for them, so for clarification, they're okay to park all the way down the road.
I believe, not to interrupt, but I'm going to, that we are kind of guided by like uniform traffic code regulations and signage, and it's a dedicated street. I mean, you can't make the speed limit 12.7 miles an hour just because you want to. So I think some of these are Amy and/or police department decisions. I mean,
Plus, we're making various different signs now. Maybe that's, now it's no longer no parking sign.
I'm not even sure you can put cul-de-sac across without a hyphen.
On this side, and
Okay,
that's costing us, that's all.
That's awesome. And Mr. Barr, thank you for that comment, but I'm still gonna follow that with, if we're able to do that, I think the more we educate the residents, the better. That's all I'm gonna say. Because if you just simply say no parking, then what does that mean?
Means there's no parking.
But there is parking.
How many people run a red light?
But there is parking on streets, just not on the
The
fire
more
hydrant side.
the more words you put on a sign, the less people are gonna pay attention.
I'm giving you my opinion, Mr. Barr.
Fair enough. And I'm
This
telling you,
is
we
my
all know what a
opinion.
yield sign looks like, and it doesn't say yield on it.
That's fine. But I'm simply saying, in my opinion, I'm entitled to my opinion, thank you. And I think the more we educate, the better. Do what you want, because
It's not up to me.
I was talking to
the other one, you put it on the entrance sign to us, as we're coming into the city.
Maybe I'll put it there.
No parking on fire engine side.
And that,
I don't know. I don't know that that's viable
right.
solution.
I don't know, I'm just,
By the time they get on the entrance, all into every development, they're gonna forget they saw it.
I just recall you saying you were gonna put signs up that say no parking throughout, is what I thought.
Wherever there's no parking allowed.
Yes, and so I was simply saying, if we're gonna say no parking, I was simply thinking, it might make sense to put no parking fire hydrant side, or simply putting no parking in the circle of, or in the cul-de-sac, like in the, and we could say that the cul-de-sac means the whole street, but I think 99% of the world will think that the cul-de-sac, if you put that in the front of the circle, will think it is the circle. So, those are my 2 cents. We can have conversation another time. I'm just saying it on the floor instead of privately. That is my opinion. Yes, sir.
on Haggett, which go on to, there are probably 5 different people who have been parking a car overnight on that street for years.
Right.
Since this is going to be a change of how we are administrating parking in the city, do we have a plan to issue warnings like we do with speeding tickets at times? Like, hey, here's a warning. Can't park here anymore. You're now you know. And
That's true.
as opposed to starting off with, I parked my car in front of my house for 5 years and now I got a ticket. Just saying, if we're going to enforce and change the policy, maybe we should have a 90, 120-day ramp-up period. Just, in my opinion, that would be something I would
I like
think
that
would be
too.
reasonable.
When we started ticketing these parking violations, that's how it started, with warnings.
Okay,
Okay, so the police department is sensitive to that.
great.
And-
That's all I was saying.
Yeah.
Because, again, I would like not to have all those cars between the landscapers and the cars that are there. Sometimes it's challenging to get to my street.
Right.
But at the same time, I mean, I know that I pretty much know where those are going to be, other than landscapers, and I think we should issue warnings for the first time. If we have an easy way to track that, if it makes sense to do that. And what's the fine? Is it a $5, $10 fine for parking? 10? 10? Okay. Nobody's going to lose their house over $10, so I'm good.
Right. Sure.
And you can still get a waiver if you call this for a party to a certain extent.
And I
So-
think the new newsletter is a great place to put it every time.
Yep.
Yep, the
Okay.
website, the newsletter.
I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah,
I just,
that's all I got. Any other comments?
Yeah, I
Yes.
just want to ask, regarding the cul-de-sac, because my son lives somewhere over there. And there's parking, by the way. I didn't see any signs. So are you going to go door to door for the ones that are living on the cul-de-sac and let them know what's going on? Or are you going to send them a letter?
Well,
or
the response would actually come from the admin, but I'd be happy to respond and say, no, nobody's going to knock door to door. I don't want to speak for you, but I'm guessing nobody's going to go door to door. But the signs that
The
will be
signs
put
will
up
be there.
will let everyone know. And I think, as Mr. Fury said, if they're getting warning things, that will also clue the people that have the cars. The warning tickets, not a ticket, but the warning will let them know, hey, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. I think between those 2 things and putting it in the newsletter and putting it, on the website, I think all those things are good information. Nobody's just going to get a ticket right away.
Oh, okay. Because I
Oh,
know,
I-
just one more thing. I know that, my son lives on a cul-de-sac, but then if you go up the street, there's like 3, 4, or 5 parking spots that you could park on the street and then walk down to his house.
Right, right. Well, people will be allowed to park on the non-fire hydrant side.
Okay. All right.
Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Did I speak out of turn for you, sir? Is that okay? Okay, you're good. Excellent. All right.
David.
Mr. Batch.
Mayor Sam, the only time I've ever received a parking ticket was not in Twinsburg, it was in Cleveland Heights. And it was because I parked overnight. And I missed the sign entering the city that said no overnight parking. So then when I called the police department asking about that, they said, well, there's a sign at every entrance to the city. So studious Chuck went around and found the entrance to the city without a sign to get out of this $20 parking ticket. So needless to say, I think what we're attempting to do is we're attempting to create an ordinance that creates order, and we might be cluttering this. We're just trying to have a tool that creates order. The concerns that I'm thinking of now is our more main thoroughfare kind of roads. If we're saying just the fire hydrant side of the street, does that create an issue perhaps down Ravenna Road, or are there fire hydrants on both sides that I haven't noticed?
No, typically it's on one side.
Yeah.
And there still is no parking between 2 and 6 a.m.
Right.
That's what this ordinance
Yeah.
says. So, not end of summer.
Right.
In a cul-de-sac on the corner, or your driveway, you can't park in the street.
So,
No.
yeah, but perhaps, if we could,
Is your point that
Forward thinking.
entrances is not wide?
the entrances are a good tool to have, but we have to cover them all. And then
Yeah, park within 10 feet of the fire hydrant.
on the main or more main roads, I could see this being more highly traveled roads problematic with, I don't know.
We also, so for some of our, like, arterial roads, I believe those are signed parking.
Okay.
We also have a provision that we can sign areas that are no parking. We can enforce this. That's not, it's actually in to kind of
Like for
orient
Twins Days, when
everybody.
we want to make it no parking everywhere, and we put signs on both sides of the road. And
Exactly, yeah, it's a section early on in the parking code, and we have there, I was just checking to see if it's here, it's not, because we just have the selected sections that are being amended.
As long as we have I guess what I was thinking of,
We do have the ability
flexibility
to
to
assign
tighten
it.
it if needed. To make it more restrictive on where people can park if needed.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
the ability to sign areas that pose, individual circumstances that would require either, you mentioned Wednesdays, we have temporary parking bans, but then we also have a section that says, it's a laundry list. It lists, 10 to 15 things or places you can't park. And one of them is where a sign that indicates no parking.
Right.
So, on some of your arterial roadways, the signs, there's no parking.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Anything else?
The focus of this ordinance focuses in on, I would say primarily residential parking regulation. To come up with a way to smartly regulate the residential districts of the city to make sure that, first and foremost, the safety of our residents is protected, and that our emergency services can get to them easily without being any more personal property than.
Thank you. All right, let's move along to ordinance 54, 2025. This ordinance is for the city's insurance for next year. The new plan starts on June 1st, which is the reason for the suspension of the 3 reading rule this evening. Ms. Conway, do you have anything to add?
Just a few things. The mayor and I met with Jim Love, who is our broker from Love Insurance last week. The renewal for this year is a little bit higher. Obviously, we have pending litigation, which obviously underwriters look at. We also had some accidents last year, but the mayor and I also took a proactive approach. We changed some things, minor, but some of the replacement things, like if one of our police vehicles was to get completely totaled, we had it as just the replacement value of the vehicle. or I'm sorry, they had it as just actual cash value, which it would be pretty much next to nothing, because once you have a totaled vehicle, I mean, and you drive it off the lot, your value goes down. So we did a replacement cost on all those vehicles, so it did bump our premium up a little bit, but if one of those were to be totaled, we would get a full replacement at the, with all of the upfit and all of that. So overall, it was a good renewal. We enjoy working with Love, so we're going to stick with them.
Okay, perfect. Are there any other comments, concerns? All right, ordinance 55, 2025. This ordinance is for the city's cybersecurity insurance. This plan also starts on June 1st, which is the reason for the suspension of the 3-reading rule this evening. Questions, comments, concerns? Ordinance 56, 2025. This ordinance is for the tax budget for 2026, which is done annually. This will be read 3 times with an emergency clause in the last reading so that it can be sent to the county by that deadline. Are there any questions about this? We do this annually?
No.
No?
I just had one comment. There are 2 new changes. If you did read the tax budget, 2 of our TIFs from last year were approved earlier this year, so those have to go on your statements. So when those continue to roll in, I think we have 11 total. Each one has to be its own fund, so we will have 9 more coming at some point, but those are the 2 that we've had approval for.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you. All right, ordinance 56, 2025. This ordinance is for the, I just read that. Ordinance 57, 2025. I'm not good with numbers. Ordinance 57, 2025. This ordinance is the ballot language that coincides with ordinance 49, 2025 regarding the rezoning of parcel 64-00096 from C2 to I1. This will be read twice with the suspension of the 3 reading rule so we can get it done at the same time. Are there any questions? Ordinance 58, 2025. This ordinance is regarding the sign regulations. This was requested by Councilman Fury. Mr. Fury, why don't you let us know why you're requesting this?
Sure. When we had the consultant and we voted on changing the codes, one of the things that got caught up into this was a chart that was put together for the that is represented in box on the second page of the ordinance. All I am asking for is to change the amount of time a temporary sign can be displayed. Prior to the changes that we did with the consultant, it was 40 days, and it had been that way for several years. So if you have, and it's just temporary signs, which includes informational signs, political signs, yard signs. It's yard signs, basically. And so if we have people that have too many of them or we need them removed, right now, the code says it's 120 days. It's a long time to go through to get that process. I wanted to revert it back to the 40 days as it was prior to this change. That's all I'm doing, is taking it back to the way it was before we made the change.
Remember, when was that change?
When we voted for, when it was part of the
new-
consultants, yes, they put a chart together, so it got changed,
I
what,
couldn't agree more with you.
last November?
Couldn't
Okay.
agree more, right. Couldn't agree more.
So that's the only change. The chart that you'll see reverts to temporary signs in each zoning district, the size that they're allowed, nothing changes there, that's all the same. It just changes from 120 days throughout the 4-5 areas to 40 days. That's the only change.
All right, no, I completely agree. Any
Thank
other
you.
Questions or concerns?
So in talking to Mr. Fury about this, what he brought to my attention is by the time somebody would have an issue with the sign being out for too long or maybe in the wrong spot, it's probably been there for longer than 40 days. And then what happens is the clock ticks from the moment the building department issues their site
that-
notice. And then the person would have another time period.
So it's 40 days from the notice.
You have to know when, because you have to start the time. So nobody's going out saying, okay, Bill, you put a sign in your yard on June 1st. No, they're going to come back in like the middle of July and say, that sign's been there for a long time, we noticed it. We're going to tell you that you have to take it down. Well, since I didn't get a notice then, now I have 120 days. So now I'm 6 months into this where I have signs out. And I just think that this is a better way to do it, in my opinion.
Wasn't there conversation to go from 40 to 30 at one point?
It's 35.
I know it was less than 40.
You and I had that conversation. I don't care if it's 35 or 40, I just don't want it to be 120. It's 40 right now. I'm good with 40. It was 40 before. I've actually, when we did this probably 4 years ago, you were the one that talked about 35 to 40.
Yeah.
We ended up with 40.
Does the admin have any feeling on going shorter? Because if it's a problem, or if they've already had it out for really.
Crime here. And in this case, the crime is the yard sign, which is what we now call, by the way, I do want to make. There's
temporary
one thing-
sign.
Yeah, there's one thing I want us to all walk away from. The zoning code that was adopted by the voters refers to what I think in the past we called temporary signs. You know, those signs on like the wire posts that are easily removable. Those are by definition yours. But yeah, I mean, we from an evidentiary standpoint, we have to prove that they've exceeded the regulation. But I wouldn't use that as the reason
To
to
lower it.
modify it. You know, I think
Works for
from
me.
our standpoint, when we looked at Mr. Fury's request, you know, we said, yeah, it's, you know, the legislative history on it is very similar to how it was. So you know, we think it would be workable, and it still provides an opportunity for our residents to be able to put signs.
No, I appreciate that. Mr.
Convey a
Fury,
message.
I appreciate you giving us that little education because I didn't know that that's how it worked either. So appreciate that. Thank you. So, is there anything else? All right, moving along. Let's go to
59.
I'm on 59. Again, not good with numbers. Ordinance 59, 2025. This ordinance is regarding changes to the zoning code as it pertains to the ARB. Mr. Zandi, would you like to talk about 59, 2025? Or are you
Yeah.
not up to talk
Yeah,
about that? You
absolutely.
want to give a short synopsis on that?
Yeah. So 59, as you see here, is about our architectural review board. In its simplest sense, and I thought about this earlier today, how to really hit the highlights. I know this is our first reading, we're going to have this for a while. So I want to say at the outset, with both 59 and 60, feel free, to send me any questions you may have, and then I can report back on the council. So, 59, 2025 moves the nuts and bolts of the ARB to our administrative code, which is where we have the nuts and bolts of our other boards and commissions. So that's like the first, major action that you see out of that. We also made revisions to the percentage trigger of activity on a site that triggers the ARB review. Now, our zoning code has a 20% threshold, and our building code has a 25% threshold, because both in planning and zoning and in the building buckets, they both use the ARB for review from time to time. So one of the amendments that we're proposing is to, and you'll see there in the text, to add that 20% threshold reference into the building code side for, frankly, ease of use for our customers, people that use our codes. So they see everything they need to see on that side, if they're only looking at the building side. And similarly, our zoning code provides references, cross-references. So I was kind of excited when this project started rolling out, because we didn't actually have to make any changes to the zoning code, which we just spent all that time changing. We just had to make a couple point revisions within our building code to make sure that it was clear how our ARB lived with both the zoning and building code. So there's that, and I'd say the final two things that are important to note. There was a section that I identified in the building code that appeared to have building permits being sent to the council for final review. So that's struck from there. And then finally, and this happens from time to time when you adopt an entire new title, like we did with the planning and zoning code, there was a reference within the building code for COAs that were granted for possible demos. That was a dead reference. The code section had changed. And then I also felt that the language was a little clunky. You'll see I added where applicable or when applicable. We don't actually issue COAs from the ARB every time a demo happens. They're limited within our zoning code to, buildings of historical significance.
Right.
And how it was written before, I thought was a little funky. So the gist of it is it's a lot of cleanup, and it's making sure that you know, with the new title, our new zoning code, that there isn't any confusion for our users, you know, who we're here to serve. And I want to give credit where credit's due. Rebecca Ziegler, Lynn Muner, Dale Steffenbacher, they all ran point on this, and you know, the mayor and I were pretty excited to bring this to you, to, you know, get the process to not just, you know, be reactive, but also constantly be nurturing and reviewing these codes that we have to make sure they're in their best format, and to bring these changes to you guys to, you know, to review and hopefully adopt and make our city just a little bit easier, you know, for anybody that needs to come in and build something and get the permits that they need. We're up just through this will help make that process clear. So that's the gist of that. And like I said, I don't expect, you know, one of the things we're trying to do here with 59 and 60, you know, when I was talking to the mayor, you know, the mayor said, let's give council time to really work through this. You know, and, you know, so we, you know, as much time as we need, we're here to do it. And we'll definitely respond to any questions, bring that back to the full body as necessary. So that's kind of briefly where we're at with 59. 60 is pretty similar too. To clean up of some of the language there. So I don't know if you have any questions.
I don't have any at this time. Does anybody else have any questions, concerns?
I do not.
All right, thank you. That was a good summary. I appreciate that. And you just spoke a little bit on ordinance 60/2025. This ordinance is regarding changes to the CRA legislation, and you just talked about that. So let's jump to miscellaneous. I think that being at 7:33 and being it's only a 6-minute executive, I think we'll do that afterwards. I don't think there's reason to start that now.
I think the CRA is different than the top program. So we started with the top program. The CRA is a new piece, and I'd like to hear what Rebecca has to tell us about the change. No?
Mr.
Yeah.
Zen, do you want to?
That's 60/2025.
I think we can maybe both talk about it. Is that all right? Like, I'll just, yeah, because I, you know, so I'll just talk kind of mechanically what's changed here. We've had some, again, changes to some of the larger titles within our code that have changed the name of people's positions, like Ms. Ziegler. So one side of this amendment to our original authorization for our CRA program. So A, we're not repealing the CRA program, nothing like that. One, we're designating Rebecca as the housing officer in the legislation because her position has changed with different code and charter updates, changed in the title. So we put the correct title in there. The other side of it, simply, and you know, please, you know, if you have anything else you want to add to this, Ziegler, but Rebecca came to me and said, listen, here's the ordinance that created our CRA program. I think we should have that aligned with state law, because CRAs are a creature of Ohio state law. They're not like our top program that is exclusively our creation and we make it up. And I said, yeah, that makes sense. So you'll see here it's pretty simple if you just look at A, B, C, and D with the red lines. Those red lines, just that they modify the language to be consistent with the state law. And then as a final refresher, CRAs, they're individually negotiated between the administration and the applicant, and then they are brought to the council to approve. So there's no necessarily like hard and fast rule about how much and for how long. The state law and having it aligned, and it's, you know, very similar to the language that was used when we adopted in 1999, obviously. But you know, that's Ms. Ziegler will bring projects to you on behalf of the mayor and present, you know, how much and for how long that fits, you know, I guess the quality or the needs of the area where that building is either going to be constructed or remote. That's really the gist of it. So I don't know if there's anything you'd like. No, sorry to take too much of the excitement out of that, but yeah, again, and I want to once again give credit. You know, this is something that, you know, the mayor's economic development director spotted, brought to our attention, and I put some time on it to, you know, come back to this council and you know, hopefully put a little bit more modern look to our ordinance, and then she and the mayor both have the tools they need to recruit the right businesses that we, you know, that fulfill the needs of
Mr. Did that answer your question?
It did, thank you very much.
All right, any other question on that? All right, at this time, with nothing else on the agenda, I'm going to adjourn the caucus meeting at 7:37.